Iran's economic crisis had been building slowly for years, but it reached a breaking point in late December, when the country's currency fell to its lowest value in history. The sharp drop in the rial made even basic food and household items too expensive for large parts of the population. Families who once managed their daily needs suddenly found themselves unable to afford essentials. Shopkeepers and merchants reacted first. They closed their stalls and marched through Tehran's streets, accusing the government of destroying the economy through poor management and corruption. By early January, the unrest expanded beyond the markets. University students, workers, and ordinary citizens joined the demonstrations. What began as protests over living costs quickly turned into a nationwide movement, calling for the removal of the Islamic Republic's leadership under Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Security forces responded with force. Hundreds of people lost their lives and thousands suffered injuries as authorities attempted to crush the demonstrations. The scale of the unrest became the most serious challenge to the Iranian government since the 1979 revolution. Anger spread far beyond inflation and the currency crash. People also protested long-standing problems such as extreme air pollution, recurring electricity and gas shortages, and the government's failure to manage Iran's natural resources. In December, officials changed fuel subsidy policies, raising gasoline prices and increasing financial pressure on both households and businesses. This decision further inflamed public frustration. The rial's collapse reflected years of international sanctions, constant inflation, and tight restrictions on oil exports. The currency lost much of its value against the US dollar and the euro. As the rial fell, prices of food and basic goods soared. The rising cost of living became the main driver of public anger, leaving millions of Iranians struggling to survive. The worsening economy and continued protests now place heavy strain on Iran's political system. Demonstrations that began over inflation and food prices transformed into a broader campaign demanding an end to the current ruling system. On December 28th, shopkeepers in Tehran's Grand Bazaar launched the first major protests. University students soon followed. Within days, demonstrations spread to large cities and smaller towns alike. Protesters shouted anti-government slogans, destroyed symbols of the regime, and openly challenged the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Crowds directed their anger at Supreme Leader Khamenei and Iran's foreign policies. Protesters chanted, "Long live the Shah! Long live the monarchy! Shame on you, Pezeshkian, leave Iran! No Lebanon, no Gaza, we sacrifice our lives for Iran!" And "Death to the dictator." The protests soon engulfed major cities such as Mashhad, Isfahan, and Shiraz. Police initially relied on non-lethal methods, but by the third day they opened fire on demonstrators. On December 31st, the government declared a nationwide holiday, shutting schools and government offices. The move failed to stop the unrest. Protests reached 17 of Iran's 31 provinces. Oil workers and truck drivers launched strikes, joining students and merchants. This rare unity among key sectors of society alarmed the regime. At the same time, President Masoud Pezeshkian submitted a new budget proposal. He promised financial assistance for low-income families, but also announced higher taxes. Bazaar merchants immediately rejected the plan and intensified their protests. Pezeshkian later told the nation that his government remained committed to solving Iran's economic problems and listening to public concerns. He blamed foreign powers for worsening the crisis, claiming that Iran's enemies sought to create chaos after the country's 12-day conflict with Israel in June. He accused the United States and Israel of training groups, importing terrorists, and encouraging attacks on mosques, markets, and public buildings. The president admitted that his administration faced serious shortcomings. and said officials were working urgently to ease economic pressure on the people. He argued that foreign powers failed to break Iran during the June conflict, and now attempted to weaken the country through unrest. Before the protests turned violent, U.S. President Donald Trump publicly expressed support for Iranian protesters, warning that the United States would intervene if Iranian forces used lethal violence. His remarks triggered harsh responses from Iran's leadership.
They're starting to, it looks like, and there seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent, if you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it, and we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination.
Supreme Leader Khamenei called the protesters troublemakers serving American interests. He accused them of acting as foreign agents and damaging public property. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also blamed Israel and the U.S. for fueling unrest. The government imposed an internet blackout to restrict information about the protests. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz publicly predicted that Iran's government stood near collapse, stating that any regime surviving only through violence had already reached its end. This moment now signals the beginning of a dangerous phase for Iran's leadership. Younger generations face poverty, unemployment, and a hopeless future in a resource-rich nation. They place responsibility squarely on the ruling authorities and still believe they can force change. The protests have shaken the foundations of the regime and now present its leaders with a critical choice: introduce real reform or risk eventual collapse. That's all for now from Global Pulse Unplugged. Stay sharp, stay informed, and we'll see you next time.